Hey everyone, and welcome to episode number 7 of Corsello's Retro Treasures, Antiques, and Other Cool Things. In this episode, the Minolta XG-1 SLR camera. So the Minolta XG-1, the XG series was released in 1977 by Minolta. It was meant to be a low-cost SLR camera. It was the first one that some electronics were introduced. Now, it's still a very mechanical camera. The only thing that they really did was the light meter had an electronic component to it. So you still had to turn it on, but once you did that, if you put your finger on the shutter, there's a little red LED dot that shows up on the right hand side. There was also a aperture priority setting on here where, and that was the mode that I always used to like to use, where basically you're just adjusting the shutter speed by adjusting the aperture. So it reads the light that's coming in, and if there's a lot of light, then your range is going to be from 1 second to 1/1000th of a second based on how much available light there is. Made it very easy. So this model is from 1982. You can tell because one, there's a dash between the XG and the 1, and also in the word Minolta, the logo is in the O. You can see it also on the lens cap. Where the early versions, most of which were the ones I found on eBay, just had standard lettering that said Minolta. So I know because of these things that this is from 1982, and the fact that it doesn't have the little grip that they added after that means that it was probably from the first part of 1982. My grandmother was taking a photography class, I think at the community college in San Francisco, and she purchased this camera for that purpose. And I know that she used it for a couple of years before she passed away in 1986. I inherited it. I started taking photography in high school. I took black and white photos with this camera. I actually had purchased a combination zoom and macro lens. But you can see obviously the lenses are detachable on this thing. So this is pretty much how I knew this camera to be, because the zoom was super useful. This one somewhat limited. This obviously gave you some zoom, and then also you push it all the way out. There it is. And when you do that, it becomes a macro lens, so then you can get real close in on objects. I took probably the best photo I will ever take as a photographer in my life. It was my peak. It won the Blue Ribbon Best of Show at the 1989 Napa City and County Fair. So I took a lot of black and white photography classes when I was in high school. Partly was the expense. They would, part of our lab fee, they would provide us the film. We could roll them into the canisters, so we could roll as many exposures in there as we could fit, really. We developed the film ourselves, we developed the photos ourselves, so we just had to buy the photo paper. We got to use the enlargers. It was a really inexpensive way to be able to take a lot of pictures and also learn about the process. During that time, I also took, during my senior year, I also took a night class at the Napa JC, junior college, community college. And they had a fantastic photo department. They had really state-of-the-art equipment. It was really a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I really enjoyed it tremendously. Unfortunately, when I got to college, I kind of lost interest when I no longer had access to good equipment to use, and I started getting into video at that time. If you look at a video like it's a photograph, you'll get better video. I don't have very many photos readily accessible that I took with this camera, so I'll just show you a couple. One of them is of the Hatt building in Napa, where I grew up. It has now been completely remodeled, redeveloped into a cool like hotel, restaurants, marketplace. It's pretty nice. It's right on the riverfront. It was an abandoned building when I took the picture. But if you're in Napa, it's actually pretty cool. There's some world-class restaurants in there. It's a nice place to stay, scenic on the river. My friend Neil, who also went to high school with me, was also in that night course. And one day we were in the parking lot out by the baseball field, and we noticed this convertible Mercedes with the top down and the keys in the ignition. Now, although we were teenagers and we thought about taking it for a joyride, all we took that day was this photo. After I pulled this camera out, I actually had to test drive it. I had not shot with 35mm in years. I didn't even know how much it cost. So I can now tell you a roll of color 35mm film is about $4 to $5. Costs about $15 to develop. When I was young, it was available in 12, 24, 36. Now 24 seems to be the standard. I kind of forgot what it was like loading the camera, for one thing. When I was using this one, you had to actually feed it in there and then advance it to get it to wrap around. But also, when you're done, there's this little button on the bottom that you have to release the wheel. You press the button and then you turn this to roll the film back. So there's some little things I forgot about like that. And then, of course, the other thing is how quickly you go through 24 exposures. I'm so used to with digital cameras being able to just snap picture after picture after picture. You really have to choose your pictures a little more carefully when it's costing you about 75 cents per picture after you figure the cost of the film and the developing. It's, you don't want to snap too many pictures of the same thing. Although it is nice to be able to take a number of pictures and also see how it came out, because that's the other thing about using a camera like this is you don't know how it came out. You look through the viewfinder and you get kind of an idea, you know what you're going for, but until you get that roll of film back, you don't really know if it came out. And you don't know whether you need to take another one or if you got what you wanted, and a lot of times you miss some great pictures. Anyway, it was pretty fun. I think basically what it comes down to is because of the cost, I will stick to using my digital camera. This does have a nice lens. I'll say if I'm going to take a portrait of somebody in the sunlight using 200 speed film, I would probably pull this camera out for that. But other than that, I think I'll stick to my digital camera. I found this camera on eBay. Generally goes for about 25 bucks. That's with the extra lens even. Oh, and I do have the flash for it too. So yeah, about 25 bucks. There were two auctions though that came with a case and two lenses, and I'll put it up on the screen, that had a bid for 25. So obviously, it goes for at least 25 bucks. So that's the Minolta XG-1. Good memories for me, and it's definitely a retro treasure. Thanks for watching. I took some pictures with this camera that I also then took with my Canon PowerShot. I also took with my iPhone. I did get the pictures back tonight, so we can take a look at some of those to try to compare.